Ian Lynch, our president, is not going to be able to be here today, so I will fill in for him at this time. So bear with me, my voice comes and goes. Hopefully it lasts. We'll see how that goes. So we'll call the meeting. Oh, and there's Kim. So at 6 o'clock. If we could go ahead and have everybody stand, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. On the CEO report.
It was always a very excellent report, full of a lot of information. One question I had, you noted in the section where we have vacancies, resignations, etc. You made reference to a mental health counselor for K through 12.
Yes.
And you said that we were searching right now for that. Is that a brand new position then for us?
No, it is a repackaging of the school counselor role.
The high school, what used to be the high school, or
Well,
Maybe
we've
not.
had elementary and a middle and a secondary one as well. But when we approached this school year, instead of having two at the secondary level that are both school counselors, which traditionally would be what we consider a guidance counselor, we decided to diversify a talent and put it where we had an academic pathway, true guidance person, and then to do mental health, because the mental health pool is so large right now. Doing that as well as doing the scheduling and all of that stuff has gotten pretty much impossible. And so that is what we are pursuing. We actually have a candidate right now that we're in the offering stage. So that would be wonderful for us to get that position filled again.
so it could be filled for school ends.
Yes.
If we're lucky.
My anticipation is we'll be filled probably within a week and a start date within the next month. And currently we have our Aspire school-based clinic, which we've had that for several years. And then we also, right next door, have our Meridian school-based clinic now, which does the health, mental health, dental, all of those things. And so we have a great referral network working as well with Jane Pauley, but being able to have a actual licensed mental health professional with extensive history and experience in therapy and those things, because of just the growing needs, that's kind of the direction we're deploying with that. They currently would be serving elementary 3 days a week and secondary 2 days a week, just based off of the schedule. But we know, emergencies and every plan we have changes before the first bell. So we've got a lot of flexibility. And
Now we'll still have our social worker,
Yep.
Maddie. Okay.
Yep.
Well, it's like we've got all of the bases covered here to help anyone that needs it. So that's good, I think.
yeah, we're working on that. And I will note, having Meridian here, they just opened January 8th, but even being able to service our adults and get them referred as well has been wonderful to be able to expedite intake and things like that. We got a lot of big issues going around in this world.
And I think I know a couple months ago we said that we would need an additional CAP instructor. We've got that filled or not yet?
Yes, we've had that filled for most of the year.
Okay, okay.
It was back in November.
Maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking about that November CEO report when you had a list of additions, you know, and yeah, I never was sure if we had somebody or not, so.
Yes, we currently have 5 CAP installers.
Very good.
So, and that's covers all of the 6th through 11th and the 12th grade opt-ins. So.
I had one more question, but it might fit in with what we're going to talk about later. And I think Andrea and was Sandy, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we have a new guest with us tonight here from Bookkeeping Plus. I think they'll still be here for that. Do you want me to throw it out?
Is it Grant?
Well, I guess the question was, according to your CEO report, we think that a lot of the projects are going to probably be into next year, but we get the money up front. And tying in with what I'm going to be talking about later, I was just curious, are we, how shall I put this? We've got 2 choices. We could either put a placeholder on our cash basis spreadsheet, which would basically net it out because that's what will occur, or if we don't do that, that might certainly help our year-end projections because we would have the cash and it's going to take a little while to settle it.
Yeah, so this is actually something, and they probably won't be here for that part of the discussion.
Oh, okay, well,
'Cause that
maybe it's
grants
good I
later
ain't
on.
asked it then.
Yeah, we'll probably run away.
Yeah, they will. So on Friday when I met with Andrea and Beth, we did discuss that. And then because we have our lovely auditors here, auditors, I did actually discuss that some with Kyla
Oh,
today
okay,
on how to approach that, because I know that has made, with our current year, that's made things a little complicated. And once we get the approval and I can start talking to the contractors and trying to figure out who goes where and when, because we had basically 3 weeks to do this, so we'll be able to figure out where most of the expenses will fall. That might fall into deferred revenue and deferred expenses. So we're going to get into some fun, complex accounting principles.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
once we kind of talk about that, then our good friends at Ball State, I'm going to ask them how they think we should do that
Right.
as well, so that we're in
Yeah.
compliance with everybody.
I guess
Since you guys are all in the room, thank you so much
my
for coming.
immediate thought was that if we have that influx of cash before we can spend all of it, that probably would help our projected year-end bottom line. That was sort of where I was coming from. But again, you guys are working on that, and I'm sure a lot of thought will have to go into it.
Yes,
But we're
interesting
glad to get
complexities
the money. So.
Yes, very much so.
Because we couldn't afford to do a lot of this stuff, or most of it, that we've done without some help. So
Sounds good.
that's all I had.
Mine just kind of have a remark, but the finance note about the money being paid up front made me think of it. My comment, although that is an interesting situation in of itself, but what jog my memory of is the bleachers. That was, I had some family over here the first time they've been here in a while, and they were really commenting on how much aesthetic improvement that was. So, very nice.
Very much so.
Yes.
That has been, at least the, you go through the labor pains, this is the beautiful thing. People's like, oh, your baby's so cute. They come in, like, oh my goodness, I can get up and down your bleachers. I'm like, yes, we have handles now.
Very nice.
Yay, ADA compliance.
The
handles are
grandparents then don't have to do what they do in the upper deck at the Paramount Theater, which is get down on hands and knees to go up and down. Yeah, so
I don't know, those
handrails
Paramounts,
are always good.
those steps are pretty narrow, but yeah, thanks for the comment, because because it has been
Well, yeah, sure.
pretty neat to see
You're
people's
good to go
response to
now.
it.
Yeah.
I know that our kids can be a little proud on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, with everything the way it's painted, I mean, it does look like a hanger, now, and yeah, the pride of that,
Yeah.
I agree. It makes it look a lot cleaner and more inviting.
Yeah.
Hey, good job, everybody.
Yeah. Is there any other comments, concerns, CEO report? All those in favor of the CEO report, please say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor, say nay. All right, moving on then. Next on the agenda is the financial report.
Okay, let's see. Since we do have quite a few distinguished guests here with us this evening, let me just make a small introduction here. I think everybody has a copy of my script. Actually, I showed all of our guests what I use, my script here with large bold print on it. From a board overview standpoint, where the year begins with us is really right now, as Bookkeeping Plus and Jill are working on our budget for the next year. And at our March meeting, which will be the 2nd of April, that will be presented to the board, and we will have what we call the first reading of it. And there will be questions and comments. And then usually we have a second reading. And finally, at the May meeting is our third and final reading where the board votes on the budget for the coming year. And what we receive or work off of in our board package is a long spreadsheet of several pages, and it is, okay, you've got one there. That is on a purely cash basis. And that is what we as a board use throughout the year for several reasons, good reasons, I believe. But this allows us to track all of the different projects that we have going on. And also, each month, we have actual results dropping into the spreadsheet. And then what we, through Bookkeeping Plus, do is we have said I like to put it like if we have better knowledge about things, if there are material changes or changes in the rest of the year, we do want to incorporate those in what's left of our spreadsheet. And then the last column is what I like to call a rolling forecast. And that's what I would say our key metric is, because we are, I would say, about 35 to 40% dependent on reimbursable grants. In other words, we have to spend the money up front and then seek reimbursement. It is very difficult on a monthly basis, just in isolation, to draw a lot of conclusions. So what we do is today will be looking at January's results, but we always evaluate the monthly data in connection with what is our latest projection for the year end, especially what our cash balance is going to be. And now I then also add the budget does not change. That remains the same. I think twice, if I recall, in our history have we had an amended budget. So that doesn't happen very often. So then I have a script, which I've told everyone that I work off of here, and each board person has a copy here to go along with me. And then several days before the meeting, I go through the numbers, and we, of course, do have quite a lot of numbers on both accrual and then on a cash basis. And I send out what I call a pre-meeting report to the board members, and Jill, of course, Kim, and then Bookkeeping Plus. And so everybody can see ahead of time what what questions I have. Also, they can sometimes see what mistakes, sometimes I just haven't caught on to something, I've totally misinterpreted it. And that's usually when Andrea calls and says something along the lines of, "Where did you take your accounting from?" No, I'm just kidding. They are too nice to say something like that. They may have been thinking it, but at any rate, the point is that this gets us prepped so that we can have let's say, a concise, effective discussion during the board meeting. And if I've got anything wrong or any of us have misunderstood something, hopefully we get it clarified, and then we're in good shape. So that's sort of how we do it here. So at this point, let me get started with our presentation. As you read down the sheet with me here, the first thing that I do is I compare our latest year-end projection, which is based on actual data through 1/31, and I compare that to what we were projecting in our last board meeting to see what changes have been made. And this time, not a lot of changes, actually. Total income, 21,000. There was an increase, which is good. And total expense for the year end, costs are a little bit higher, about 16,000. So not a lot of activity there. And sometimes we do have some very big swings from one board meeting to the other as we look at our projected year end. And then also, we always take a look at the year-to-date debt service coverage ratio, which we see is 1.83 times. Our bank requirement is 1.25. Now, I do caution everyone that this is a cumulative year-to-date. For our guest here, for various reasons, probably complexity, we do not try to make a year-end projection for accrual or accrual statements. And that ratio, of course, is calculated on an accrual basis. So that is very good, but that is subject to a lot of fluctuation. And we had a big month in January with our innovation grant coming in. So that could be deceiving. Just always beware, be cautious of how we interpret that number. We also track substitute expense for the year, and right now at the end of January we're at about 101,000, and I'm looking at a budgeted figure of 119. So I don't know, we've got spring break coming up, a mild winter, maybe we'll make it, but I'd say that we probably won't exceed it by too much. Now let's see here. Let me go back and quote the figures for our latest projected year end. Our total income as stated, and I'm going to pursue that point a little further here in just a second, as stated is $11,199,575. And the total expenses stated is $11,663,926. Now, that is pretty close to what we had at the last board meeting, and that gives us what I like to call a cash net income loss of $464,351. Now, that figure may change, may improve, may get a little worse, but it pretty much will stand that we think we're going to have a cash loss, which means that to cover all of our operating expenses, we are going to have to take money out of our cash balance, or some like to call it a cash reserve. Well, we can do that. We're certainly not broke, but we certainly don't like to do that too often because we know where that road can lead us. Now, let me go down just a little bit here to, let's see here. It says subtract transfer entries. I know this is a little bit technical, but I want to put a proper perspective on the $464,000 loss. what happened, and we've discussed this here in the board meetings, but what happened was we had a loan in the amount of about $337,000, and the banker said, you know what, I'm in town, and why don't we do this on June 30th? And rather than pay the vendors directly, which I think most of us understand that's how they usually do it, we got the money. And unfortunately, the bleachers, which you may have heard people talking about here before the meeting, in the gym, they've already been completed, and I think we're looking at the computer purchase in March, or maybe a little bit later. So that immediately causes a real problem then. And if you'll notice on the very far right-hand column, I have, and I've got a line separating all of this. It says clarifying comments about projected net cash loss. Well, I think to put the loss in proper perspective, we need to add back the $337,533 loan. And then that would reduce the loss to only $127,000. And also, we compare our year end with our budget. And for example, total expenses as stated are $934,000 over budget, and income $458,000. So you can see that the misfortune of that loan in one year and then the proceeds in the next sort of skew the results here, because what we're trying to figure out is actual economic activity. So I did want to mention that, and then also we talked about this at the last meeting. I won't dwell upon it, but Andrea, at my best count, I think there is still $57,188 from additional grant monies that Jill highlighted for us in the November CEO report. I don't think they've been added back yet. They all are the smaller grant categories, you know, what I usually call other.
The NSP is on there.
Is it on? Okay.
The NESP is, the others are not.
Okay. So that helps us a little bit, but still mostly because of the loan timing, we are going to have a cash loss. I'm not sure how the accrual, we don't get into the accrual in too much detail. So I did want to explain that. So if you actually look at what was an actual economic increase or decrease, our latest projected total income would be $10,945,692. Expenses $11,410,042. And lo and behold, that comes out to the exact same loss on the bottom line, which it should, according to accounting principles. Okay, and we originally, for our guest here, the board insists that our budget that we approve in May is at least a break-even budget. And certainly we're not opposed to having a budget that has more than that, but we want at least that to start the year off with. Now, will we be able to achieve that? Probably not, but we shoot for that always. So let's see here. Okay. The next thing is the monthly results, but let me see if there's anything else that I need to cover here. Also, we know that in our second ADM count, which I think has been reconciled, I believe you said, looks like we lost 7 in total. Virtual picked up a bunch, and we lost a bunch in-house, and I think it's at 85% of the funding for...
Of the foundation
Or
amount.
foundation amount, yeah, or what I
That ends
call
up
the
being about
base.
$1,100 right now.
Oh, okay. Now, we know that if we do, if our second ADM count is less than the first one, that will affect April, May, and June in our state tuition. Golly, I was thinking somewhere in a range of maybe 15.5 up to no more than 25. Does that sound too high to you? I know you'll be calculating that eventually. I think in April you get some reports that will
Yeah.
fine tune that.
So it won't be a significant change in what we're predicting.
Okay, I know, I tried some combinations, I came up with the 11 too, so it's not going to be that much, but there will be a slight loss. So let's see, if we added back the 57,000 minus the NEES loans, two line items there for that one, that would put us down to almost about 400,000. Okay. And then, of course, I just asked my unknown question here. I've got it written in about how much of that money, if some of that money carries over through the end of the year and is not spent, that could improve the bottom line a lot. We'll just have to see. But in the long run, it's just like all of our other grants. The only money that we really get to keep, if we can, is what we get from state tuition and summer school. And if we can't cover our operating expenses, we don't keep any of it, because all of the grants we do, I think, legally have to spend, or we're advised to spend it, else we may not get the same generous amount again. So, okay, well, let me wrap this up here then. Next, we look at January. And quite often it's redundant because many times, but not always, what causes our year-end projection to change is what happened during the month at hand. Now, we knew coming in January, and for our guest here, on the average, out of 12 months, we usually have, again, we're on a cash basis, we have 5 very profitable months where we add cash to what we have on hand. And the rest of them, sometimes there are some pretty heavy cash losses, sometimes not so much. But January, because of the second installment, it's July and January are always big months on the bottom line. And that's just our normal cycle, so we have to be aware of that we do have some low months on cash, but then we make up for it with the other 5 or so. Okay, fortunately, we have no transfers. Let me make a quick mention about the transfers. I think we've all got the hang of it now, but we have on our cash flow spreadsheet, for example, if we have a payroll mistake, the payroll hits the bank the end of August and it should have been 1st of September, then we've got a double count situation unless we correct it. So we add a line to income and expense called transfers, and they net out. But the thing is, and this is confusing as a board because we're always trying to compare budget versus actual, whatever that transfer was, and many times it's just a transfer from our big bank to our local bank. But it skews the numbers because it increases total income and total expenses. So you say, golly, we increased our year-end projection by $100,000. Sounds like Jill and Kim might be worth a bonus trip to Cancun. But no, because if it's
It is budget season.
yes, that's right. But if it is a transfer, again, that's a deception. So that does kind of complicate what we try to do here, because we do want to focus just on actual economic activity. Fortunately for January, there's no transfers. So total income, let's see. Well, let me skip with those numbers. Let's just go right to the bottom line. Our actual January cash net income, as I call it, was as an outstanding $478,482, and that leaves us with ending cash of $979,627. Now, that's very good. The trouble is, if you take a peek ahead, I think we've got about a $400,000 loss in April, so that's going to bring that down, because for year end, our actual projected ending cash balance is only $460,801. I think we may have not mentioned that before. Fortunately, you have a sheet, our guests do not here, so okay, so let's see. The budget for January was $421,633. So we did beat the budget by about $57,000. And on an accrual basis, we do make sure that we state our monthly accrual results every month. But on an accrual basis, it was $410,848 pre-audit, of course. We always mention that. So here, the two numbers are very close. Often there's quite a wide divergence. And then February, we take a peek at that. That is pretty much a break-even month. And then, as I said, April, May, and June are all projecting losses. April's a big month, and then that, I think it's 46 or wait a minute, March, it's 410, 46, 46, and then almost flat. So you take your money in the months where you can really make hay with it. Now, down below there, and I don't know that I want to get into this because we don't want to take too much time on this, but then I present to the board the changes in our projected year end, and it shows what was increased, what was decreased. Let's see, for example, I'll just give an example here for the audience. Tuition out of 14 subcategories that I have on my pre-meeting report, 4 out of 10 went up. On expenses, 10 were either zero increase or a decrease. For example, tuition was the largest increase for the month, or no, for the year-end change in projection at $19,000, innovation grants 16. The biggest loss was our titles, mostly Title I of $18,577. And then we look at expenses and their total expense for the year-end change. Increase was 9 out of 23 accounts. Zero or a decrease was 11 out of 23. Let's see. The biggest increase in our cost, which are not what we like to see, was general and administrative supplies at $27,000. And then everything else was less than that. And those that look like a big cut, building improvements. Building improvements are mostly our ESSER projects, and when we pay the invoice, it turns up on as a building improvement on the expenses, and then when we get reimbursement, it's up here on income. So eventually it's a wash, but it makes for havoc in trying to compare budget versus actual. So, and it looks like we'll have more fun with that next year. Okay, that was changes in projected year end. And then going to January, let's see, we've already stated the figures. Not a lot occurred in January that was extraordinary, let's say, good or bad. 3 out of the 14 accounts that I have on the monthly data were favorable variances, which are good. The largest being our student fees, about $17,000. We've done very good on that this year. Unfavorable, 0 or unfavorable, we had 11 out of 14. Actually, the largest below variance in the month of January is food service reimbursement, which was about $71,000, but that is always a red, I don't know if it's a red herring, but it really confuses things because food service is a wash. It's just we take 2 months worth and then we send it in for reimbursement, and you just almost have to ignore it. So that affects both income and expense. And then we haven't got anything for our safety grant yet, although that we're expecting $100,000, and not any question on that. We did get some E-rate money, so we've only got about $117,000 more to go to meet our 135. So we'll see how that turns out. And then let's see, under total expense for January, favorable was $143,287 for IT hardware, probably computer purchase that we didn't spend. So again, that is not a bonus-worthy event, let's say. We need to sort of cast that aside as just we did not incur that because we did something else with that. And of course, we talked about last month, outside cleaning costs have been up for the whole year, and Bookkeeping Plus did change the year end quite a hefty jump, as I believe, from about 180 to, was it almost 300? So that we've already talked about. And if you notice the fine details, P&C liability had an unfavorable variance of 20,000, but that is strictly a timing difference. And what you do is you look at unfavorable variances, and then you look at the year-end totals, and if year-end totals are the same, you know it's timing, so you don't waste any time on it. And I think the only other thing, unless you guys have questions or something else we need to discuss, we do, everybody's concerned about board education. And I can speak for my fellow board members that we don't want to be a board that doesn't know what's going on. And to do that requires some board training and education, which we've had. I also try in my pre-meeting reports, I do contain a lot of tutorial information. So we probably spend more time going over some of this stuff than other boards do. But partly it is because we want everybody to have a pretty firm grasp of how we're doing financially. And that also makes it easier if you just have one person like me as treasurer and something happens to me, then we'll be much better shape on the transition. So please pardon me if this was a little long and wordy, but I knew we had special guests here, and I wanted to give them a pretty good picture of what we do and why we do it. So, and we're always open for suggestions for improvement. So,
Absolutely. As always, you do a great job explaining everything, Dave.
okay, Andrea, did I do okay this time? Okay, she's nodding. She's nodding yes. So okay.
Okay, so it looks like we're ready to, I need a motion to approve the board treasurer report and the monthly financials, those are separate. So I just need a motion and a second to approve the board treasurer report.
I move that we approve the board treasurer report as presented.
Oh, good. We haven't had too many no votes yet, have we? I don't know if you're keeping. Well, I can't. That's right. Yeah, I tried that once, and they said no, you can't.
You can't do that.
You can't do that. So.
All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone not in favor? Okay, great. Now I need an approval for the monthly financials, or a motion in a second.
I'll move that we approve the monthly financials as presented. Can't talk right tonight.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second that motion.
That's right.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Any not in favor? All right. And next we have the CLA 2022-2023 audit results.
Hooray, your show.
Do you want us to join you at the table or go from here?
Whichever your choice be, ma'am. We can clear a spot, or you can be right there.
I can talk loud as long as everyone can hear me. So everyone at the board table does have a lovely packet of a presentation for side decks. We like to use a little bit of graphs and some colors versus the long form of the financial statement. So that's what we're going to use. My name is Kyla Greenhill. I'm the principal with CLA. Familiar face from last year, hopefully, for those that have been on the board. I have with me Ski Ficklin. She's a senior associate, well-versed in compliance, and was out here tormenting Jill throughout the audit process. So wanted to bring her along.
You were the one that. Wow. I had you pictured a lot differently than her.
Dave, you're gonna get me in trouble.
So on slide 2 here, quick agenda, just to go over the engagement terms, what we were engaged by the school to complete, the audit process as it went, financial highlights, a little bit higher level on that accrual basis year over year, June 30th. And then Ski's gonna help me with some of the compliance results as well. If there's any questions, throw something at me, raise your hand, whatever works to get my attention. Happy to have a conversation around the process.
Let's see, I've got an extra in there, we can get that. Yeah.
Want one?
How many copies would you like, Jamie?
I'm glad I brought extra now.
Good job.
So on slide 3 here, this is really an overview of the engagement terms. So we were engaged to express an opinion on the June 30th, 2023 financial statements and the scheduled expenditure of federal awards, are also called the CFA. As a school, you receive and expend over $750,000 of federal expenditures, so that triggers that additional federal compliance schedules on your report, as well as some compliance requirements that we're required to. We are engaged to summarize the audit results and observations and comments as of June 30th, and that's what we're here today to present. And then completing and finalizing the deliverables, including the federal data collection form. So all items were finalized and filed with the State Board of Accounts on 1/31, and then we are in the process of finalizing the data collection form. As with everything, there's a lot of changes. The data collection form website actually was revamped by the federal government and was down for quite a bit of the fall. Went down October 1st and came back, I believe, in December as an MVP, not the good kind, but a minimal viable product from that perspective. So it's been a little challenging. So we'll work with Jill to get that finalized here in the next week or so. Now that the site's a little more user-friendly, you do have until March 31st to get that filed, so we'll be well before that. The next slide here is really around the audit process. We just want to comment around management's preparedness, results, any adjustments, those types of things, and then overall our opinions. So we were able to coordinate with Jill early on in the process. What does that time involve, including working with Bookkeeping Plus? I know they can't see me, but I'm waving at you, Andrea, from that perspective. And so we were able to do site visits at Bookkeeping Plus for some of those records they had, as well as join Kim and Jill here on site as well. So about 5 days of field work, I would say, on site, and then this remote hybrid process for the audit drafting and preparation and review and all the quality controls we have. Jill was very helpful in coordinating with Bookkeeping Plus as that other third-party service provider, so it was a very good working relationship, all rowing in the same boat to get to where we needed to be from that perspective. Audit results, happy to report we had no past audit adjustments, and the audit adjustments we did have were related to the lease accounting standard change, and very minimal, not material adjustments as far as Jill provided that with the help of Bookkeeping Plus for some of that deferred revenue where you get the money in before the expenditures happen. I did have no internal control over financial report, I work with numbers, not words. No internal control over financial reporting items to include. So that would be if we had a significant audit adjustment, or we had a major issue with any of the figures that provided on that accrual-based trial balance. We didn't have that. So we don't have any material weaknesses, significant deficiencies. We had an other matters comment because according to the audit standards, us as the independent auditors cannot be your control for your financial statement prep, including the footnotes and adoption of accounting standards. We're able to assist as a non-attest services, but we can't be the only control. So that's the only comment we have there, just to reiterate that segregation of the duties and who has the responsibility ultimately for those financials.
Is question appropriate now?
Yes.
Okay, and I promise not to ask as many as I did last year.
I like a conversation.
Okay. I was just curious, I know we have seen that before. Is that something that most charter schools typically see or is that something that may be just unique to us, without getting too specific?
I would say organizations of your size, no matter where they're at, that is a typical comment.
Okay.
Especially in a year where there's a significant accounting standard change. And with the lease adoption, that was a very technical, analyzing the agreements to come to a very ridiculous amount to book on your financials, but had to get to the standards. So that's, I've had it on, I would say, 95% of my clients that I get to work with. The 5% that don't, because they are able to have a CPA on staff that is up to standards with the financial statements, accounting standards, GAAP reporting, and all of that from that perspective.
Okay, so no undue worry about that, but we do take the comments seriously.
Correct. And what we got to observe as you were giving your report, that tells us that, hey, management understands that. The governance and the board understand the importance of their role in the financial reporting of the organization. Great question. So the best news, what everyone cares about, the third bullet there is your opinions. So you have 3 opinions in your financial statement because of that federal compliance audit. Your first opinion is on your financial statements. That was an unmodified opinion. You have 2 then over your federal compliance. One's over internal control over financial reporting, and 1 over actual compliance requirements. Both of those were unmodified. Unmodified is that clean opinion, the best opinion you can get. So you get 3 gold stars for that report. I love giving out gold stars. Don't always get to, but I'm very happy to say I get to tonight from that perspective. On the next slide here, slide 5, just to highlight some of the governance communication, that's a required reporting, a separate letter that was provided as part of the audit packet, really to provide an overview of the audit process. Highlight the standard change we talked about, highlights, hey, there was federal compliance with your single audit under uniform guidance. Talks a little bit about in that green bar, the estimates. So estimates in an accounting world means, hey, there's some judgment around, for here, depreciation. What's that useful life for those bleachers or this equipment, this new wonderful HVAC system? What does that all look like? And the depreciation methodology. The other one we look at is the functional expense. How is expenses allocated between your management in general and your program? Because of management's estimates, we take some additional time in our testing just to make sure, hey, is there any bias there? Is there something that's a very aggressive stance in any way? When we looked at it as a whole, we did not have any issues with the estimates prepared into the financial statements. And then the other column here, really nothing to report there. We had a very agreeable visit with both Bookkeeping Plus and with Jill, as much as Jill may have said some other things. That was very good.
No, I'm in trouble now, aren't I?
Thanks, Dave.
We talked about the other deficiency around the responsibility that reporting around the financial statements, and then management was able to sign the rep letter, no issues with what they represent as, hey, we gave you everything, it's accurate to our knowledge, and all of the different things of the final completion on it. So I'll stop there because that's a lot of the words, and then we're going to get into my favorite part next to the numbers, and I know their numbers are your favorite part.
Not necessarily.
All right, well, next steps here on slide 6 is really the financial statement highlights. You do have presented comparative financials, so it shows you 23 versus 22 fiscal years. Talked through the opinions already, but in looking at that second column there, the financial position, or also called a balance sheet, there's some significant changes there. Cash was up $482,000. Grants receivable was down about $860,000. Property and equipment was up about $970,000. A lot of that is all triggered around your ESSER dollars because you have the ability to use those funds, which was great, really reinvest in your campus, but it also really throws off your timing. So when you're talking that cash timing, hey, you had a bunch of grants receivable outstanding at 22, that all got paid. So your receivable balance went down quite a bit at the end of 23. Cash was a little bit of that, but it was really driven too by that notes payable increase here down below in that column with the $127K. That's net of those new loans that closed right at June 30. against the payments that were made on the previous loan. So that's why there's not quite the jump there
Okay.
from that perspective. Now, the other two items I have here, ROU asset and ROU liability. Those are the new accounting financial statement line items for the new lease adoption. ROU is a right of use. So what that did is that standard took, you had a lease agreement for office equipment. So you have the right under this agreement to use this asset. Well, what's that dollar value? Based on the terms, the length of the agreement, what's your monthly payments, what's that present valued at, what's the borrowing rate? That's an asset to you guys over the life of that lease. But then you also, on the flip side, you owe under that same lease for future payments. So that's what that's showing, is that gross up, hey, you have an asset, but you also have a liability. Yours matched because there were no prepayments or balloon payments or anything like that that can throw that off. Over the life of those leases, that'll be amortized at the same time. So really the only thing running through your statement of activities is those cash payments from that perspective. Now going forward, should the school enter into any agreements for right of use of any equipment, land, anything that has that asset value, will need to be analyzed under this new lease standard. So if you go into, hey, our copier's done, but we need 3 more, hey, you're gonna have another jump up on that asset and liability in the year that goes in.
Now, is that, I think if a lease, this is where most operating leases are now becoming capital leases and have to go on the balance sheet. Is that what you're describing?
That is what this is, yes.
People used to like those operating leases because it didn't hurt some of their ratio.
Correct, and that's what the
And we didn't
standard.
have too much anyhow. So.
No, yeah, we had some schools that we worked with and other clients I've worked with that had a 7-figure asset and liability to add, and that really messed with that debt service coverage
Yeah.
ratio if you didn't have the clarification from the bank, do they want that in there or not, and how that needs to be calculated in that calculation and defined. But yes, that old idea of operating leases goes away, and it's on the books as a right of use operating. Now, if it's truly still what would historically have been that capital lease, where it would have always had that asset and debt on the books, that is now called a financing lease. So the categories are still there, but they're both on your books on the financial statements. Statement of activities, really your state education support was up about 732, really driven by that enrollment figure that we spend a significant amount from a compliance standpoint that Ski will talk about, testing those enrollment figures in your files. Grant revenue was down about 641K. Really, again, those ESSER dollars were one-time dollars, really used in 22, and it wasn't renewed in 23. Other income was down as well, about 309,000. Really significant jump in your E-rate from 22, the dollars that came in for your E-rate versus 23.
Yeah.
From that perspective. Expenses really remain steady, which is a great testimony to management and making sure that, hey, enrollment numbers and all this, yeah, grants are going to fluctuate, but just your operating expenses really stayed steady and was down about 185,000 year over year. Something else that the school should be really proud of is the breakout and its functional expense. So the amount that is going to your programs is 88% of every expenditure dollar. So 88 cents on every dollar is going straight to your programs. 12% is going to your operating for 23. That is a fabulous ratio and one that should be very proud as you're going and putting that on your 990, that public document. Or you have someone that wants to give a private grant, hey, you can tell them, hey, your dollars are going to go to our program. So if I'm sitting on a board having that type of ratio, I need to know that front and center and something to think about and be very proud of. 22 was very strong as well. It was an 84-16 split. Some of that is because, hey, administering those grants takes a lot of extra time from that perspective.
So in other words, we're not overloaded with what manufacturer we call overhead.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And pre-COVID, we would have saw an industry benchmark of around an 80-20 split. And you guys are north of that. Coming in through COVID now, kind of seeing the results, and now on the other side, it's really closer to a 65-35, it just kind of across the industry. I'm really interested to see as we get through 24 and 25 farther and farther if it goes back to that 80-20, but not sure what the industry will look like. And then for everyone's reading pleasure to go to sleep, that last column there are your significant footnotes. The only one really to point out is that footnote 4, leases, does have the new accounting standard for leases included. And it says ASC 842 for 23, and then it says ASC 840 for 22, because you have comparative statements and you have 2 different accounting policies for those periods. Going forward, you'll just have the ASC 843, or 842, excuse me. All right, you've heard a lot from me, so I'm gonna turn it over to Steve here to talk through some of the state compliance and federal compliance.
So this is like my thing. I love state compliance because I came from state board of accounts.
Oh,
Something I do want to talk about here at the beginning, the scope. So our testing is based upon the guidelines for audits and charter schools performed by private examiners, established by the state board of accounts. This is not where the state board of accounts writes all these rules. They write the rules based on legislation. These are our legislators making these things, not necessarily state board of accounts. They get a bad rap, but so our significant areas that were tested is average daily membership. That is something that we always have to dig in. This is what your tuition support is based off of. So whenever we are seeing these numbers go up and down, that's how, and also back to legislation, how much money you're gonna get per child and the calculation based on that. So this year, whenever we were testing average daily membership, we noticed the same thing as last year. There were some issues getting all of mainly birth certificates. And it was explained to us that sometimes that's very difficult for you guys to get, but it's a state compliance thing. We have to have a comment on that. It is something that you are not alone in. Like this happened. This is if you go through, especially charter school reports, you can see this a lot. So we are encouraged based on Jill's comments to us about how things are going and making sure documentation is there whenever you do follow up with a parent or guardian. So this was expected, I guess, to us, but it looks like it's improving and it's going in the right direction.
And it's not to the detriment of there was a student received funding for by the school that was ineligible. That's not where this is. That is a much different conversation. This is the school policy requires XYZ. These 13 files didn't have XYZ, so it's just making sure the policy and the files line up.
Right. The students were there. They received the money. You received the money for those students who were actually enrolled. It's just the documentation. And next, the single audit federal compliance results. So our testing for that is based on OMB uniform guidance. And our major program that was tested is 84.425 educational stabilization funds.
Yeah, so she loves state compliance, I'm a federal compliance geek, self-proclaimed, love it. So these whole set of rules are at the federal government level, not the state level. When you look at the most restrictive, that's your federal government. So all of the rules and regulations to follow is going to be most restrictive, and we spend a lot of time on understanding the grant program, understanding what the Department of Ed wanted out of these programs to see when it put the dollars out there. The ESF fundings under this is what you guys have been using as your ESSER dollars. So federal program titles get really wonky when it gets down to the actual programs and the brand names. So this is collectively all those ESSER dollars. And so the result of that is we had no internal control over financial reporting findings, so that's great. We had no compliance findings. All the dollars were spent as they should have been spent according to these most restrictive requirements. What we ran into is there was an internal control over compliance issue regarding the construction project with the HVAC and the prevailing wages in the Davis-Bacon requirements. This is something that I've seen quite a bit with these federal COVID dollars because funds came out so quick and got dispersed and were said, hey, use them as you can, we'll figure it out later. Well, they figured it out and now they're saying, hey, you didn't do this right, but you didn't know you didn't do it right. So we've got this like, it's black or white, it's compliance, it's there or it's not. And so we had this issue where the contracts did not have the right language for those restricted dollars to say, hey, my subcontractor I'm using for this project paid the prevailing wages according to the federal guidelines. In talking with Jill on this, she's like, yep, understood, no going forward now from that perspective. And we have the corrective action plan to say, hey, if there's another construction project, we will ensure that that's done. And that's the best corrective action you can show, especially with these programs that were so quick out there. Guidance was always changing, and then final regulations for compliance didn't always line up with what you had as guidance. So I've actually had this on most of my colleges as well that received the federal dollars because they used it for programs and projects and didn't know as well. So again, very common in this type of situation and expected to not repeat going forward. Any clarifications on that, Jill?
I will say, it is an agenda item for today in compliance with our corrective action to include that in procurement. So you get to be here while we actually do what we said we would do. Or, well, you can leave before we do, but.
We'll see if Jill kicks us out. She kind of runs the show for us. We're already done. So the last slide here, again, just thank you for the opportunity to present to the board and governance. Always great to have Ball State here as well. We don't get to see each other in person very often. But our contact information is here. So I know Jill has already got me on speed dial for this new CFIG and the accounting around that. So working with Jill and Andrea to make sure that all gets squared away. And then compliance issues, Steve's there as well. And we're happy to answer any other questions. Maybe a little longer than 10 minutes, sorry.
Not too far off. Not too far off.
A real quick comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Jamie Garrett, Director of the Office of Charter Schools. I haven't gotten a chance to meet you yet. I'd like to do that before I leave tonight, but I real quick want to make a little plug for Kyla here because about 2 years ago, I think we did this training that I like to call Understanding Your Audit for Regular Humans. And she did a really good training for Ball State Charter School boards. And we do have the recording of that training and the slides. And so if you didn't participate, I think it was about 2 years ago, if you didn't participate in it or just want a refresher, and now is a good time, you've got the audit in your hands. And so Jill has access to that. It's in SharePoint as a training. So just a good time to take a look at it if you want. Again, like I said, I felt like it was audits for regular humans and just kind of helps you figure out, what do I need to know if this isn't my area of expertise? You know, if you're not somebody that deals with that every day, it's totally understandable to have questions. So I just want to do a little plug for her training that she did.
It was exceptionally good. It made me actually start understanding that. Am I allowed to disclose that now after the audit?
Yeah, you're good, Jill. Thank you, Jamie.
All right. Thank you so much for coming and explaining.
Thanks.
Really appreciate everything.
Jill, if you need us, you know how to reach us. We will sneak out and you guys can pick your agenda.
All right. Okay,
Have a great one.
Thank you.
Okay, see you.
As a follow-up, I'm re-verifying that UBI for you, but nothing's changed.
Perfect.
It did give me access. All right, thanks. Bye. Bye, Ski.
All right. looks like moving on to old business. Do we have any old business?
No, ma'am.
All right, well, we can move on to new business. We have our APA Spotlight.
All right, so I would love to welcome to the table our special programming gurus. So we have Cassie Cunningham, which is part of our SSC. She is the director of SSC, which is our special education department. Then next we have Jenny Pruitt, who is director for ELL, which is our English language learners. And then we have Jessica Hornacker, who wears a lot of different hats, but today she is the program coordinator for High Ability for K through 12. So put that hat on her, and that's it. So ladies,
Welcome, ladies.
it's yours.
We all have
Anywhere you guys want.
I say cameras here.
Although you will.
Nice. Avoid that. Don't worry, we'll go and find like a social media bad picture. We don't just project it on the
I
recording.
don't have social media.
So have fun with that. Only get my good side. We'll find you.
We all have a handout for you for our individual programs. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and pass them all out that way. Yeah, only have to do it once in front of them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, they have this one.
Oh, you already, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that I gave them.
Oh, okay. Did they get one too?
No, I didn't give it to both Steve.
I printed out a pretty good extra. Yeah, it's just.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You are fine.
Thank you.
Dr. Niemeister.
So I'll go ahead and go first. I'm Cassandra Cunningham. I'm the Director of Special Services here. I gave you guys a handout for our major things that have been happening this year. One of the big things, our RDA came back again with no findings, so that's always really nice.
That is
To
nice.
see. Super exciting for us. And then, put my handout down. Let me get it so I can actually read from it. I did break down the student population so that we could get a good idea of how it's trending so far. We are down in SPED population this year, but I think that's just because of the overall enrollment. We have 175 students with IEPs out of around 844. That's about 20.7% of our population with IEPs. And then I kind of broke it down even further to look at the disabilities. The majority of them are SLD, specific learning disability, or other health impairment. And then we start to go down from there. But we are seeing an uptick in emotional disabilities, autism spectrum disorders, and some other high needs that past couple of years have been coming up into the school or being identified from previous. So that's exciting. So we're making some changes with that to make sure that we're supporting them as much as possible. I did go to an iCase conference a couple weeks ago now, maybe a week. It was a lot of information. So right now I am compiling it to discuss what major changes we need to make before the beginning of next school year to make sure that we are supporting as much as possible, but also being compliant and making sure that everything is looking the way it needs to. One of those, just a little snippet, they don't like weekly provisions in IEPs anymore. They would prefer monthly or by reporting period. So we're going to be changing kind of how we write that now.
Odd.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought that was weird too.
Curious if that has to do with the growing attendance issue crisis.
A little bit, yes. So that's just a little bit there that I thought was kind of interesting because I'm like, I like weekly minutes. I like being able to mark it down and see what if we're meeting all those minutes. But no, we're changing that for
I'm
starting
going to
next
ask a
grade
dumb
period.
question here. IEPs, what does, that's apparently an individual progress report or?
Individualized education plans.
I know you told us that when you were here before, but I forget.
Yeah, it's
Or
all
forget.
right. It's a lot of acronyms you gotta understand and like keep in your head for a long time. I try to explain as I go, but I missed that one, so thanks for catching it.
Oh, okay.
Just real quick, the 175 students with IEPs, does that also include online students as well?
Yes,
Okay.
that
I
includes,
assumed, but I wanted to make sure.
no, we don't have as many online this year. Most of them are in person,
Okay.
so.
Let's see now, if I recall, most of the 175 are in elementary or elementary and middle school, not very many in high school?
I would say most of them are 6 through 12.
Oh, okay.
In the elementary, we're identifying earlier with developmental delays now, but that's kind of like the foundational years where we see after some interventions, we are identifying, but giving them that time to acclimate into the school environment. So we see a lot more evals in the second, third, fourth grades rather than first.
As they
in
get further
kindergarten.
behind, I suppose that's when it becomes glaringly obvious.
We try to catch them by the end of second grade, but that's,
Do you find that the 6 through 12 kind of rolls from COVID?
we're seeing a lot of delay from that. And that's actually one of the reasons I wanted to go to iCase, because we have seen such a huge uptick in evals and students being qualified for IEPs. And the question is that over-identification due to, falling behind during COVID? Or is that really a learning disability that's happening there? That unfortunately, they did not have that conference there, but I will find it.
Good.
That is one of the big ones that I would really like to get another perspective on though.
Does this 175 include students that have covered under the 504?
No, this is only IDEA, IEP.
Okay.
504 plans, we do not have, I would say, more than 15 whole corporation. Those are normally headed over by the counselors or principals because they're utilized also as a child find process.
What is the nature of that program? The 504?
A 504 plan is a civil rights plan that will provide accommodations for medical diagnoses and things that can impact a student's life or living.
Oh, okay.
It's very, very similar to IEP. It's just
They don't get the academic services. Yeah, the IEP provides those and that.
Yeah, and typically in the 504s, that is kind of where we document things that can be implemented in the classroom to help the teachers provide supports, so that there's a better understanding of, maybe this kiddo is suffering from a mental health thing, or they have a specific trigger from a certain environment, so we don't put them in there.
Oh, okay. I think my colleagues are much more knowledgeable than I am about these things.
just over 500.
Because I don't know anything about it.
I'm saying, education.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time, day in and day out, so feel free. I at least got that knowledge down pat. I don't have to read what I put down in my notes. So based upon everything at the iCase and just some things that I found going through the SPED program here at APA, we are going to be revising some policies for next year and changing some expectations for the teachers of record. Starting in August, they will be required to attend at least one training specifically on writing skill-based goals, one training on writing transition IEPs, and behavior management or intervention plans. So they have to attend one of each of those each annual year and then provide me with the certificate so that we are keeping up on the up-to-date procedures and policies and making sure we don't lose some of those skills, because sometimes whenever you're not attending those conferences and stuff, you forget, oh yeah, I forgot that it can be written this way. So we just want to keep up the knowledge. I am also reviewing a better and more intensive process for monitoring and identifying at-risk students for IEPs or special education services. So that's just, again, because I want to make sure that it's a learning disability and that the student really needs it. And it's not just, there was some attendance problems or something along those lines. We want to make sure it's appropriate for the student. Oh, I did forget to mention, I did provide my staff with a catalog on the trainings and everything, so they can go to free trainings. They do not have to pay for it. They can go throughout the year, summer, virtual, online, in person, so. Oh yeah, there was a couple more, sorry. Positives for the year. If you can see this nice little spreadsheet down here, this is my really awesome, I'm proud of thing. We are doing a new attendance tracking with Google Forms, and then I took that and I made formulas where it automatically calculates and displays the amount of service minutes versus the required, and it turns green once they're met.
Good job.
I don't have to do anything else. It automatically does it. So that's super exciting, and I have a master copy for next year. So I don't have to change all the formulas again. So yeah, that's my baby right there that I'm super proud of, because I am not an Excel person. So that was good for me. Another one is that I have at least 2 paras that are going back to school for special education and to get their licensure. So it's really awesome to be able to promote some motivation for that within my own staff and kind of get them excited about being teachers of records as well. So that's one of those proud moments too. Not just me though, it's the other teachers of records that they work under, promise. And like I said, we are incorporating more interventions that include social skills, behavior management, and social emotional type of lessons with our students that are providing some more of those behavior challenges or some challenges with social emotional skills and stuff like that. That includes visuals and bathrooms for some of our students who need support in that as well. So we are putting a lot of effort into supporting those students that are coming to us and they have those extra special needs that we may not be used to having right now, but we are learning very quickly to support them as much as we can. And I think I talked enough. Any questions?
Let's see, how many home-based students do we have currently, or roughly?
Homebound?
Or homebound, yeah, where we have to have an individual teacher just for them?
No.
None, okay.
No, that is definitely one of the very last options that we choose to explore. We had one that was on a hospital homebound type of plan, but he has recently withdrawn. So that is something that we don't have a lot of. I would say mostly if we're going to change the placement, we try to stay in the least restrictive environment of 51, which is in a resource room. Because it's really important for the kids to be able to socialize with their peers and get as much class time in as possible while still getting that educational support that they really need.
Let's see, the kids in the resource rooms still, or most of them go to regular classes, is that correct?
They're in class between 40 and 70% of the time. 79. The majority of the students are in an LRE of 50, and that means they're in class at least 80% of the time. and pulled out somewhere in between that percentage for the academic services, social, emotional support, stuff like that.
And then, federal special ed dollars. I think we've always had a question of, but we don't track it. Do we get enough dollars from the feds and the state to cover our special ed program, do we think? Or is it sort of like we feel like we're always running short at the short end of things?
Is it never enough?
Well, that's a good point, yeah, you might argue never enough. But
No, I definitely feel there's some area for growth in that department. Yeah.
Look at that politically correct answer. Very proud.
Sometimes I but yeah.
Yes, and the challenge that we face with that is every year is a new year for us. Every day or week might be a change where we think we have enough staffing and then we have a kiddo move in who needs a one-on-one, or we have a kiddo have a circumstance happen that then requires a different program. And
yeah,
so
I recall sometimes having to appoint during the year another aide, for example, yeah.
yeah, so I say Semper Gumby around here, we're always flexible, and it would be amazing if they just would give us extra money. But
Perfect world.
in a perfect world, we make do enough, but we could always use more.
Yeah, I get to be the one that always like
She
puts
is
a
my
wrench in the works and asks for more, like, hey,
yes,
this is coming up.
she's my least favorite after the budget has been decided.
Really? So you're the one that does all the complaining.
Yes.
Ah,
Maybe. I admit to none.
okay.
I'm going to let the next person go unless you guys have any questions for me.
Very good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
That would be me.
You got a standing ovation, or applause, round of applause last time you were here, I think. Yeah.
did.
Let's see if you can top that.
Well, I don't know. Hold me to those high expectations.
Don't-
Okay, so, my demographics are, we have 142 Hispanic students. And when I went off 838, that's when Mark Dixon gave me the numbers a couple weeks ago. That's 17% of the student population. We have one Tanzanian, she's our foreign exchange student. Of those Hispanic students, 105 of those are language minority, meaning they speak Spanish or a different language. And 74% of those language minority are Hispanic students. And of the 105, 76 of those are my English language learners, which is 72% of the language minority students. So since I started here in 2018, when I started, there were 41 ELL students. Our numbers right now are 76. And that number fluctuates throughout the year. We get some move in. They're coming from, they might come from New York, they might come from California, just trickle in. And this, I feel like our families that are coming in are happy with what is going on here. So they have family members who are coming, they're like, oh, well, how did you hear about AP? Why are you coming from California? We have a family member who comes, here. So I feel like that's a good thing for us. We're doing something good here. So to me, that says something about our program, and as small as we are, that we're getting that. We also are getting a lot of transfers from Holy Cross. When they leave Holy Cross, they come here for high school instead of going to the public school. They don't want to go to Anderson Public School, they want to come here. And then we get some from they come in from even all times of the year. So they come to us. We're part of the Title III Consortium because even though our numbers are up, we do not, so you have to have enough students to get $10,000 on your own for a title grant to be a standalone title grant. So we're part of consortium, and right now they work through Wabash Valley, which is in Lafayette, and there are 118 more school districts that are part of that. And we all share, it just all goes in one big lump sum, and they divide that money up. But we do get to take advantage of professional development opportunities
which is software licenses, family engagement funds, et cetera. So
How
that's
far
all.
away are we from being able to get a grant?
Well, that they have, each of these, service centers have like areas that they cover. So it's not yet, we can go, sometimes they have on-site programming for PDs, but they have a lot of PD pops, and they have a lot of virtual,
And-
PDs that we can have teachers attend or staff, you know, my staff, which is,
Do you remember what the Title III allocation is this year?
I think our Title III allocation was like 7,300 or 7,500, but what they do is they just
Right.
lump it all together, because there are some schools in there that maybe get 800, so it's just kind of
I
like.
thought they did
So-
away with Title III.
I would say once we hit 10,001, right, or?
Yeah, once we can get $10,000, which we're on our way, I mean,
Right.
we're edging up there.
Yeah, so
If our
then-
numbers keep going up, I feel like it's not gonna be long where we can have our, the kicker to that is, if we say, okay, we no longer wanna be part of the consortium, we no longer wanna take the Title III, we still have to follow the Title III rules.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still, we have to be in compliance, we still have to have an EL plan, we still have to be, they can still monitor us, so we might as well be getting the money. I mean, we don't get the money, it doesn't come to us, we have to just tell them what we would like to have, how we wanna use some of the money. We're only allocated like 700 for family engagement and 1,500 for supplies, because it's all lumped together.
Question.
Next page, teacher record. So beginning in the fall
Hey, Jenny.
22, it's
Jenny.
mandatory for all schools to have a teacher of record. Yes.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So you said that the Wabash Valley, sends out that, distributes the money.
Uh-huh.
Is that like at the beginning of the year or in the middle of the, like, how
No, they
is
don't
that?
send it.
We don't
They
get it.
We don't get it.
They get
We-
our money
we
and they
can-
give us resources.
Yeah, we request.
Oh, okay.
We can request things like the other, like, I don't know, it's probably like last month, if I request something, she said we can fill out like an Amazon wish list of things we need, like for family engagement. We can tell them there's certain software licenses they have. If we request licenses for like Duolingo or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Then they will get those for us. They don't actually give us any kind of money,
Okay.
so.
I just wanted to follow it in my head. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just like, I've got my watcher back here. Teacher of record. It was mandatory to have all schools to have a teacher of record for their EL students. The ratio is supposed to be 1:30, but I know all schools can't meet that because there just are not enough teachers for the EL students that are in the state. We have a TOR here, who's Wendy South for our 6 to 12, and we have Sam Sorrell, who's the TOR at the elementary. They provide the oversight of the ELL students' now required language development instruction, which includes a list of several responsibilities. And they do receive stipends from the EL monthly tuition support payments for their extra responsibilities. Now that did change. It was the NESP grant. The legislators changed that to the monthly tuition support. It did go up, it doubled.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
We did get more money, yeah.
But because we get more money for the level 1s and 2s, because they get more money because they do require more services than our 3s and 4s. But it now is coming in, the tuition support payments. Our EL students just completed the annual WIDA assessments, so I thought it'd be nice to give you an overview of that. The WIDA assessment, how they began taking the WIDA assessment, when they come in the beginning, every student fills out a home language survey. If they mark any language other than English, then they have to be assessed with the WIDA placement. And then if they score lower than a 5, then they are considered an English language learner. And then in January, they will take the WIDA assessment, which we just finished. It's a standards-based criterion reference English language proficiency test, and it measures their the language arts in mathematics, science, and social studies across the 4 language domains: listening, speaking, reading, writing. I did attend a virtual IDOE EL leadership meeting last week. And up to this point, they had to reach a level 5 to be exited from the program. They are working at lowering that to a 4.3 to be exited out, but there will be criteria to go with that. We'll be looking at grades, we'll be looking at other things. They will have to meet attendance, other things to exit them early. And they will be monitored for 2 years, just like that our exit program is now. And it won't be until they're in 3rd grade that they could be exited early. So that's something new, and they haven't really approved that yet. They said it could be by the end of the 24 year and use our 24 scores to do that. So that's still up in the air for that. But it is, I will say that I probably have 12 high school students that have been at a 4.4, 4.5, 4.6 for years and just are stuck. They're just stuck there because it's a very academic test. If you look at it, very academic, and I don't really understand how it's based, it's testing the language level. It's very academic based.
Now, with those people you're describing, will they most likely graduate though?
Oh, they'll graduate.
They'll
This has
graduate.
nothing to do with
Nothing to do with
graduation.
that.
No, it's just they keep taking it until through 12th grade, but then it just stops. I mean, it has nothing to do with graduation. It has nothing to do with passing grade levels. It's just, to see where they're at with their academic language. So, now, here we're at the IOP, another acronym for you. That is an individual learning plan. The individual learning plans are created for each student according to their language level. They are a legal document and they carry the same weight as an IEP. The IOPs provide students with accommodations for the classroom as well as on-state testing. They provide in-class accommodations and or in-class assessments as well as state testing. Our EL plan required classroom teachers to provide 2 services for our ELL students, which are outlined in their IOP. These are content-based English language development and science, and that's what's in our EL plan, and that our EL plan is on our Title III grant. We have to come up with an EL plan, and we would have to have that whether we have the grant or not. So looking at our WIDA scores from 23, that graph shows that we had 12 that were tested at level 1, which is your lowest level. There were 15 that tested at level 2, 33 that tested at level 3, and that's where that's where they hang out, is kind of like in the 3 area and 4 area, and 16 at level 4. It's hard to get that. We rarely have level 5. Rarely. We had 1 last year and we had 1 2 years ago, but they just they get stuck in that 3-4 area.
Does that mean they can't do it anymore, or they just don't want to put forth the effort?
I think what happens is there's a kindergarten test, and then there's a 1st and 2nd grade test, and then they go into a kindergarten test, a 1st grade test, a 2nd, 3rd grade, a 4th, 5th grade, 6th through 8, and 9th through 12. So they take it like it's 2nd grade, and then 3rd grade they get better at it, but then 4th grade it changes again, so it gets a little harder. So then they take it in 5th grade, and then they master it kind of in 4th, but 5th grade they get a little better, then 6th grade it gets harder again. So, I mean, it changes academically, it gets harder, and so they just keep getting stuck and can't get past to get that level 5. A lot of them, that's when they move up to the level 4 range and can't get past it. So I'm really glad that the state's looking at that, because other states, their requirement is like 4.5, 4.4 to exit out. And we're one of the few that are stuck at exiting at level 5. So PSYOP is part of our EL plan, and that is something that we're trying to keep the teachers up on. That is allowable for our level 3s and 4s. And they can get that content area English content area from their classroom teachers. This research-based and validated instructional model that the teachers can provide to the students in the classroom. It provides the classroom teachers implement this to the English learners in their classroom, and it helps develop the English skills necessary to become more proficient in academic language needed to be successful students. And on the back page, the content-based English language development, this focuses on content rather than language. It would approach to second language teaching. The students learn about the subject using the language as learning rather than their native language. This learning tool helps to develop knowledge so the student can develop their linguistic ability in the target language. So they're actually picking up the academic language as they're learning from the content. And these are for your level 3 and 4 students. That way they're not having to be pulled out for like 30 minutes at a time. Our level 1s and 2s still need to be pulled out for like 30 minutes each day to get extra assistance or extra content area, background knowledge, the extra support needed just to develop the language. Because at our elementary, we have kindergartners who are still very limited English. We have a couple in the first grade that are very limited English. And that's where K3, we really concentrate on that 30-minute pullout, because they're still building that background knowledge. We have some that are still developing the language. So you have to approach those students differerently than you do the 3s and 4s. They're just building on the content more as they get into the 3rd through 12.
So like special ed, they spend most of their time in their
Oh yeah, they're in the classroom.
And then they're pulled out
Right.
on an as-need basis.
And then we do special ed, we do share some students.
Yeah. I think
So they receive EL services and special education services. And that's a tricky line too, because in order for a student to be tested for special ed, that's an EL student, we have to wait and really make sure it's not a language issue before they can be tested for special education. So that ends up being, they're not tested probably until 1st or 2nd grade, which sometimes they're not anyway, because we have to make sure it's not language-based. And sometimes they're tested in Spanish, so we're making sure that it isn't just a language issue.
And the students who are evaluated that have ILPs go through an extra assessment to make sure that there is no language barrier whenever they're in the process.
So we work together closely on that. And I would say the win for the EL program is it's continued to grow in the past few years. And I think that's, like I said, something to be said about our APA as a whole. They're very happy, and I think that's going to be an upward trend. I just feel like, I mean, we've gone from 41 to 76 in 5 years, and I feel like it's just going to continue to grow, and I'm looking forward to it. I have to be. And if you ask about the money,
I say, you wanna hear about that one? Yeah, no. That's like $133,000 deficit, or give or take a penny.
yeah, let's just go there. When you're saying $500 for each level 1 and 2, and $300 for each 3 and 4, no.
Yeah.
How do you provide those kind of services for those? But, you know.
Hey, they gave us more.
They did give us more, we'll say that. They did look at that. Those legislators were like, yeah, that's better, but come on. So, any more questions?
Hey, good job, you made it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sweating, though.
Now, if we applauded you again this year, we'd have to do it for Cassie. We'll just, you both did a great
You
job.
can just see, let's just do a collective at the end.
Alright, so I took a little bit different approach to what I'm sharing with you today, because I'm gonna be back in June to give a more in-depth picture of what the high ability program is and where it's headed. So just gonna kind of do a summary and talk about a program that I'm in. But we have right now about 83 students that have been identified as high ability students, K through 12. We provide services through them, and we have a couple more in a cluster approach, which would mean we would take, because we don't have a class full of kids at every grade level, where we have them in with a teacher in small group. We have one split level class in the elementary school where the 3rd and 4th grade high ability students are in the same class together. And that kind of fluctuates from year to year as our numbers in each grade level fluctuate. We tend to not identify tons of kindergartners so that they're developing, but we use a process called front loading, where we'll still cluster those kids that we have identified through our evaluations as probably or potentially to be identified as a high ability student, so that in 1st grade and in 2nd grade they receive some extra services and some critical thinking and are pushed and challenged, and then we reevaluate in 2nd grade. The state, we screen at kindergarten, 2nd, 5th, and 8th based on the state requirements for that. So everybody in those grade levels gets a screener, and then we use our identification process. But I'll dig into deeper to that, but it's a long thing. So the elements of a high ability program, there are 5 areas that we have to have for the state grants that we write. One is a multifaceted identification process, curriculum instruction, guidance and counseling, professional development, and then a program evaluation plan. And I was fortunate enough, the DOE offered a program that started, I guess, last spring. They asked for people to apply for 2 different programs. One was for 20 high ability coordinators that don't have their certification courses, and then 20 high ability coordinators that do. And I was chosen to be in that cohort with them. And so I got to take an extra class at Ball State this summer with Dr. Neumeister. I kind of consider her like the guru of high ability education. She taught most of my certification classes. And so I got to take her class all summer. We evaluated the program. Like, we had to really break down our high ability population, and we're really working to try to make sure our high ability program population is as close to representative of what our general education programming looks like. It's not quite there, but it is getting closer, and we've got some new identification things that we're trying that I think are going to help us get even closer to those percentages matching up. And then I also got to continue to meet with her 3 different times throughout the school year. We just wrapped it up, and then we have like 4 or 5 monthly meetings with other high ability coordinators around the state that are in that program. And it was just really beneficial because I got to hear that, like, everything that I was like stressed out and panicked about is the same thing that they are all stressed out. They have the same, no matter what size the school corporation was, they all had some of the same, you know, concerns and pathways that they're working on these things. And so as part of that, I developed this paper that I gave you. This is like our future planning, kind of high in the sky for each one of those areas. And then they also include for that class program design and services. So that's not something that is included in the high ability plan that we submit to the state, but she had us work through that. And probably the most beneficial thing that I got out of the program was that I want everything to be just right, like, now. And this is a really big project as far as trying to get everything developed that we want to get developed so we can continue to move forward. And so she was like, it's okay to spread it out and like give yourself time to develop these things. You don't have to have everything figured out and perfect right away. So this project helped me. So we set 2 main goals with these, and most of these goals were pretty close to the ones that we are working on anyways, and then some quick hits. So she gave me some things that I could accomplish, had me think of things that we could accomplish quickly that would satisfy my perfectionism, and then some bigger ones that we could work on as we get in process. So the biggest one that I'm working on is I'm developing just a stakeholder information sheet, like I'm developing our handbook further, getting everything that we have. We have everything in place that we're supposed to have for our grants, but we don't necessarily have it all compiled in something that's neat and nicely used for everyone. We can all access it, and if you need something, I can show it to you and give it to you, but I'm trying to, like, I don't know, update it and modernize it, so I'm really getting into Google Docs, so everything has a link, like all the documents and papers that you need. Like the one that I just finished was our exit interview for a student. If they choose to exit the program, there's a whole process. Or if a teacher thinks someone's struggling, there's a whole process. So every form that those teachers need is linked to that document now, so they'll have to click a link and they have the document right away. And so instead of me having to print a paper and hand them all those hard copy papers. So that is my goal, and to have that all pretty and beautiful for you by June to share that with you. So that is my part of that. Basically, that is pretty much it. The biggest part is we developed our broad-based planning committee that we had, and we set out all of our meetings. And normally, the last broad-based planning committee meeting is when we start to talk about the grant. And then I just heard last week that they are now pushing the grant to be like, they're gonna open it up in May. It's gonna be due before the end of the school year now, and it's usually due by July 1st. So our meeting's in June, and so I probably will have to try to move that so that we can do that. But I mean, I've helped write the grant before I became a coordinator and kind of assisted the previous coordinator, so that part won't be an issue as far as where we are with that. And then I oversee the spending of our grant, and no, it's nowhere near to cover any of that. I think the biggest win for our program this year is that we do have at least one staff member that has started the certification process. I built it into the grant for us to pay for his classes, and so he started that process. He's been working with our high ability students for several years. Fantastic. So he's he's taking his coursework through Ball State, and so he just finished up his first class, and I'm excited with that. And that'll be our goal, is to continue to try to add some more teachers that are certified. I was able to go to the National Association of Gifted Children conference the last 2 years, and I was sat on where I got a micro-credentialing program given to us from a school in Florida. So myself and the other academic director, because I'm also the academic person for elementary, but we're going to work together to put that into our onboarding process with new teachers, and so that they're getting a bit of that micro-credentialing, and then expand it to all of our staff, because I mean, basically high ability best practices are best practices for all students. So if we can kind of continue to expose that for the students, for the teachers, and kind of have them more comfortable with that understanding of what it really is, then I think we'll continue in the right process. That's pretty much all I did. I shared the plan with you. Those are very pie in the sky. Hopefully the deadlines don't have to be flexible, but they can be if they need to be, is what I've been told. So.
Now, is advanced placement classes, which are the big thing in all the schools, or all these high schools, is that the same here as high ability, or is there a difference?
Yeah, no, yes, that's part of our program for our high school students. Our high school students can take honor classes, dual credit classes, and the AP classes as well. That's how we provide services for our 9 through 12 high school high ability students. Those classes are available to other people that are in the high achieving range and have shown that they are capable of taking those classes too. So they're not limited to our high ability students, but they are one way that we reach our high ability population. I think our biggest challenge that we've started to find too is convincing our high ability students that they should be going into some of those programs more, and to try to get our enrollment up in those programs. So that is, I think it's probably on the list. If it's not, it's on my invisible list that I have too, is just to kind of, because sometimes I think they think, oh, it's extra work. If we're really doing it right, it's not extra work, it's just deeper work, where we go deeper into the topics and more into the, more necessarily instead of scraping the surface of a topic, they should dig deeper into those topics. And so it's not going to be more work, but the kids see it as, oh, I've got to do extra work. So continue to work with the teachers so that we can get the kids in the right places.
Now, they still go to most of the regular classes with their this is not something that is segregated, let's say, or separate, or?
No, we don't have any self-contained classrooms at this time just because of the numbers. For a couple years, we were able to we had enough numbers where we had a full first, second grade and a full third, fourth grade self-contained classroom. But as the numbers fluctuate and people move in and move out, we've really gone to more of that cluster approach, so there may only be 4 or 5 at a grade level. A couple of our grade levels have much bigger numbers for some reason, and that just by the nature of, I guess, those grade levels. I don't know, something was in the water that year, but most of our kids, but it's the gen ed teacher that they're with is who provides that. We do have a certified teacher at the elementary school in high ability programming, and we're working on the middle school one, and then I have 2 high school teachers that are interested in it, so they're going to be the next ones up to start getting certified for that. And then part of their role, which they probably don't know too much yet, is they're going to help me with professional development with the other teachers and helping those teachers kind of understand, like, how do they reach those students in their classroom, what kinds of things they should be doing.
Will still teach regular classes too?
Yes.
For the most part?
Yes. Yeah, and we use the rotational model at the elementary school, so it's really easy for us to, well, not easy, but it's easier, it's more flexible to differentiate in our classrooms with the different levels, and sometimes it doesn't hurt to teach to the highest and let it trickle down and scaffold with the lower one, with the kids that are maybe not at the same level, but they can do the same projects.
The rotational system, as I recall your dad explaining years ago to us, it's sort of like advanced placement within the same classroom, isn't it? If somebody is working at a 4th grade level and they're in like the 3rd grade, they go ahead and with technology and computers that you can sort of do your own thing.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean,
used to, it wasn't so easy when I
taught. For example, I also in a 1st grade classroom right now teaching.
Yeah, I totally heard. Yeah.
And the 1st grade classroom has those kids that we have already identified as high ability. It just happened to be a coincidence that I got to be with those kids, and also the ones that we were front loading. And so, like today, like we've been working on when we did our 2D, 3D shapes. We were working with our Excel, and my kids that are identified high ability, they finished their 1st grade lessons and activities pretty quickly with that. And so I just moved them to 2nd grade shapes, and I had one today finished where we've now moved on to fractions, but she's done the 1st and 2nd grade fraction lessons. And so because of our IXL curriculum and the way that we teach, I was able to go ahead and let her move into the 3rd grade fraction unit and work with her a little bit one-on-one with that and get her started in the classroom without having to wait for the other kids to master what equal shares were, because she's already got a pretty good understanding of what fractions are and how to write fractions and what a numerator and denominator is, where I still have other 1st graders.
2nd grade?
First graders.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, and it's kind of interesting because she's she's math only, so there's 3 different ways that we'll identify our students. They'll either be identified as a general intellect, which means language arts and math, or they'll be language arts only or math only. Large majority of our kids used to be just general intellect, but as we've become more knowledgeable about how we go about identifying, we've been able to really start identifying them more in those specific subjects. So we don't have as many that are language arts only or math only now, but that will grow now that we have a better understanding and did the certification classes and learned more about how to do that. So.
Good job.
Good.
And I will say this is the example of when you put a high ability kid in that programming position, that perfectionism always jumps in and makes it a little complex. So.
Yeah, I saw a meme the other day that said, like, ask kids that were in high ability programs in the 90s about their like high anxiety perfectionism or their lazy perfectionism is what it was called or something. So, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. So.
Can I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
So you were saying
forever, Angie.
You were saying that they have to have it like a certification, and that's in like all of the high ability, like the high school. I was thinking they've got to be like specially licensed or whatever to teach those dual credit classes or something.
So dual credit, yes. Yeah, for the dual credit, each entity that like governs that dual credit class has their own requirements about what they require or who is teaching their class. I
Okay.
believe most of the dual credit classes will require the teacher to have a master's in the area that they're teaching the dual credit. The AP courses, they just have to have their license in that area, and then there's some AP summer programming things that they can do to get more information on that. We're really working to grow our AP program right now, so most of our AP classes are done with Indiana Online or through Ivy Tech or another school through that.
And then for the like middle school and elementary, you said that you're working with one person for the middle school, and then you have one in the elementary, and you're working, like, can other people in the elementary, so here's my question. So a person that's considered high ability, are they gonna have the same teacher every single year until they get to
No,
middle
we have a
school?
cluster at every grade level with a teacher that I have identified that I think has a teaching style that is conducive to those high ability students. So not every grade level has a certified teacher in place right now. There are 3 of us that have completed the coursework in the corporation, but 2 of us are in admin right now. And so, one of us is half admin, half
Right,
I don't know
right.
about admin anymore.
Right.
But yeah,
You're doing it
so-
all.
yeah, doing a bunch of different things. But yeah, so that's the goal. That's why one of those goals is to try to find people that are interested in it. And one caveat to that is that I want to invest in teachers that are dedicated to being here at APA.
Right,
So
right.
we're going to spend our high ability grant monies because it's not a lot at all. I mean, it ranges from like 19 to 25. I think one year maybe we got 27. So we're right in that middle range right now. I think if we're going to invest that money in those teachers, I want them to be able to say, I'm staying here at APA for
Right,
a significant amount of time. And so right now, the person that is doing their training he's student taught here at APA. He has been here since my sophomore year. He was my sophomore in college's student teacher when he was in 5th grade. So I know he's invested here. His daughter goes to our school. She's actually in my class right now. So I know he's invested in that, and so I felt comfortable getting him into that program, and he's been providing services. Anyways, I already know that he has that niche in his brain because it does take sometimes a different angle to education, a different thought process to really truly meet those kids' needs. So we're working on it, but then the micro-credentialing is going to really help the teachers at the other grade levels that might not be officially certified yet, but through the micro-credentialing, I'll be able to continue to work that, and I do professional developments throughout the year. I came over and did a PD pop with the middle school a month or 2 ago and just showed them different options, and the biggest thing that we continue to go back to is to explain what the characteristics of a high ability learner are, because they often get the misconception that our high ability learners are your people pleasers that are in your class following directions, are the teacher pets, and often we find that that's the other way around. Our high ability students are the kids that are questioning the adults in the classroom on a regular basis, and so which is really good, so that you need a teacher that understands that to help them channel that questioning into learning.
How many dual credit classes do we have?
A lot. I know that right now we have a dual credit Spanish. I've been told that this is the last year, but I've been told that for several years. So I hope that she just continues to get her waiver for that. And so we have dual credit Spanish, dual credit English, both at their junior level and the senior level. The math ones, we don't have any dual credits this year.
Right, but they're attending coursework. The state's paying for people to become certified in dual credit, and if they don't have their master's, because it's a master's plus 18 hours in that specific content area. So there are a lot of programs right now that are helping with that.
And we did have a couple last year, but the person that taught it became the assistant principal at the elementary school. So we did have a few last year, and that was the first time we've been able to offer it. So that's why the teachers are working to get to where we can start offering those again. And then every summer, Ivy Tech offers dual credits classes for free at no cost. And so our students have access to that. Really, if we have a high ability student that's interested in any dual credit class, we have the way to get that. I know that I have a high ability student who has took an econ class in the fall because the spread in the spring didn't match up with the schedule of what he was doing, so we went ahead and enrolled him in that for the fall.
Yeah, I would say this year, all of our seniors took dual credit U.S. government in person. We have our partnership with Indiana Online, which offers courses through Ivy Tech. And then majority of the courses as part of the CTE over at D26 are also Ivy Tech dual credits. We have kids that are independently taking classes through Ivy Tech, AU, Ball State, Trine,
Indiana Tech. Some of them have changed their, Indiana Tech used to do it for $25 a credit hour, which is incredible.
Now, the
but they turned it up to their
CTE,
pricing.
isn't that vocational training?
It is, but the concept of vocational from, way back in the day is completely changed.
Different, okay.
With our programming, we have several students that have come through the CNA programming, so they're graduating with their certification for being certified nursing assistants. We've had vet techs, the fire certifications there. We've had some welding. They're doing a lot of different things. We are also having some early childhood things go through. We did, for the first time last year with the class of 2023, have a student graduate with their associate's degree prior to graduating with their high school diploma. I think there was like a month time span between that crossover. And then we do have a current junior who I believe in December of next year will finish out their legal studies associate's degree from Ivy Tech and then graduate from APA in May.
Oh, wow.
So
That's great.
we found some interesting pathways, and
Schools have come a long way since
yes.
I recall them.
Yeah. So
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thanks, fabulous job, and fabulous job, social services.
Yes, everybody.
We all three share students. That's true. Here together. We have overlap. So
We have twice
I have EL
exceptional.
students in the high ability program and special ed students in the EL program. We're twice exceptional friends. And
We may at some point
Didn't you
have
used to
thrice
coach the girls'
exceptional.
basketball
I
team?
did coach
Yes.
girls.
You still do?
No,
That's right, yeah.
I retired so I could see my kids and stay sane.
Okay.
But I still have the record on the record books.
Oh, all right.
Hey, they're gunning for you.
They'll
Yeah.
probably beat it next year.
Records are made to be broken, they say.
We'll
I hope
see.
they beat it. I was hoping they would get it this year.
So close.
One
So
point.
close.
Literally one. That's right. We're
So close.
They're getting there.
Now we have procurement policy updates.
Yes.
We have that. Everybody should have a copy of that.
Yes. So with procurement, basically Kyla already told you what we're doing and why we're doing it. With the procurement policy update, if you look, I believe it's possibly page 3, I had it print highlighted and up page 2. Everything highlighted
Oh,
in yellow.
yeah, okay.
That addresses the Davis-Bacon Act compliance. So that is specifically outlined in that. Basically with Davis-Bacon, if you are going to use federal funds for construction projects, you have to verify local prevailing wages are met by your contractors and subcontractors. That requires reviewing their pay role and making sure that if they said Fred is this kind of laborer, that we've gone on the federal government's website, verified in Madison County with the local prevailing wages for that, and that they are meeting or exceeding that for Fred for his work with our project. It's a little complex as far as that compliance, but what we have written meets all of the needs as defined by federal government, which aptly names their universal grant guidance. We all call it UGG. That's what it is. It's a very thick book with Bible paper thin. So with this, that is when we did our construction audit with the Department of Ed for ESSER 2. We actually did not have any findings with this because when they requested the audit, everybody in the state went back to their contractors and got the payroll to go verify all that. It was a fun, interesting scramble for
Now,
everyone.
if this was for ESSER construction, Shouldn't train, for example, have been on top of that, or any of the?
No.
No,
It's
that's
not
there?
something that you can ask, or that you can say, well, the vendor should have known, because the vendors are, they deal with so many different types of contracts and funding situations. Now, I will say the caveat to that is they did have a ed consultant that was, you know, part of their process explaining how all that works, but it's truly on us to do it. And as far as how this all went with ESSER 2, we passed that audit because we were able to do that. That was for the modular and similar projects like that. ESSER 3 is the project through Train, and we actually were in compliance as far as checking the prevailing wages, having all of that. It's literally not having that procedure in this policy is what the actual property is.
Okay.
So in there specifies how we will monitor and all of those things, and that's pretty much it. So puts us in compliance, and that way if there are any more windfalls of money, we are
Prepared.
squared away.
No, we don't need to vote on anything.
We do.
Or
We need to
do?
vote to update the procurement policy as written.
Are we ready to make a motion then?
Has everybody read the addition to the procurement policy?
This highlighted part is the only addition, is that correct?
Yes. It's actually right about that. The last update we had was about Buy American, and that we will give preference to American vendors. So that was the last change that we've had to this. Everything else is.
Even if no one in America still makes this stuff, yeah.
We will give preference. We will try to do that, and then we will move forward.
So I'm looking for a motion to accept the policy changes for the procurement policy update to include all of the construction projects funding and the payroll within.
I'll make a motion that we accept the change to the procurement policy for adherence that David was thinking as outlined.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone not in favor? Okay,
Thank you for that.
it is all approved and ready to go.
Fantastic. Okay, so the next thing I have for you is part of the charter facility grant. And this is, Kyla mentioned earlier CFIG. This is not CFIG, as this is a state-funded grant. CFIG is what we got previously, and that was federally funded with
Yeah, that was a
IDEA.
one-time only deal.
Yes. And this grant is also one-time only. It's part of a $25 million allocation from the legislators to try to address some of that property tax dollar shortage. In addition to the Charter Innovation Grant, and they do not anticipate renewing this funding because of the changes that they have made to property tax allocations, as well as referendum sharing and everything, but that will not benefit APA at all. So we'll just ignore that. We will take this money and enjoy. Basically, our allocation was $519,953.95. And you all have the application as well as the confirmation that it was submitted. The budget for this one was interesting because they wanted me to take the activities and tie it to the allowable expenses and the actual statute for capital projects that it falls under. So as far as I am aware, I got all of those correct. However, they may come back with one change. My curiosity for them was an ADA compliant sidewalk because it is for our Denny Field area. But that is an instructional as well as sports facility for us. So I went with sports facility and hoped for the best. Looking at the projects, obviously we've been doing a lot of work over the last several years with the strategic planning grant process, and so We did have stakeholder feedback on kind of priorities. Obviously here as a board within the last 6 months, we've looked at that project wish list and kind of where those priorities are. And then during my quick 3-week turnaround, I was able to kind of touch base with our building level and say, okay, if we've got this one shop, what can we do? Elementary, having an extended parking lot facility is paramount for our success in a lot of different ways. Right now, our parking, we don't even have enough for our staff, really. And our neighborhood has been very tolerable of us, but if you've ever been around that building for arrival or dismissal, it's a little cozy, and the streets are a little cozy. Doing this will expand our ability to have family engagement nights, where our families don't have to walk a few blocks to get to our school. And so that is high priority, as well as updating our playground area and equipment, being able to put in some more inclusive play spaces and look at getting like ADA compliant swings or things like that. As we have students that may be better served with that equipment, this would be what we would also update over at the elementary. That's main things that they really want right now. They also would like their roofs repaired, but it's not nearly as bad as it used to be, so we're good there.
Oh.
Yeah. Here at 29th Street, this is where we would be looking at our pre-academy parking lot. Is the last parking lot to get hit. That is over on our west side. So that is included there. Looking at some of our basement updates as we want to expand the esports program to include our middle school, as well as expand our flight simulator lab. Looking also, it's hard to believe, but we're kind of running out of space over here at 29th Street. There's not a lot of places for me to put people if they say,
it is hard to believe.
hey, I really want this. I still have not figured out how ACS had 1,000 kids in this building and that, but
It was fun.
yeah, I was gonna say that seems
Well, we used to have
sardine
classes. I
classes.
had near 40 in my classes years ago when I taught, so
Yeah,
we did it.
We have updated the basement. When we did the esports lab this year, or going into this year, I went ahead and had all of the classrooms wired, at least for internet, and getting new wireless access points and things for us to update the actual, to be able to serve the flight simulators esports. There's some extra Ethernet wiring and some electric that we have to do just to be able to support that, because we do use pretty powerful desktops that, side note, our students build. So full on STEM there. So that's really a big concentration here, as well as doing the ADA compliant walkway over at Denny Field, Guillaume Stadium. One of the challenges when we put in our beautiful track is if now we can host track meets. However, then that eliminated during a track meet, if someone came in that had wheelchair or cart, they can't really go on the track to get to the stands. So we need to add another pathway there. And then also out here, the entrances that, well, I guess technically exits, we're not supposed to drive in this way, that go out to Meridian are in need of a little love. So that would be really the majority here. And then the remaining would be going over to 25th Street. Looking at parking lot, HVAC, the works. With that, obviously, we do want to look at moving our early childhood into that area, as well as being able to offer that daycare option. There are new programming and grants quickly becoming available for schools to help them be able to provide childcare for their employees, as well as some other organizations. And so the sooner we can get 25th Street up and running and access to that funding, the better we're going to be able to serve our staff, which then in turn better serves our kids. So win-win-win for everybody.
Now, I was wondering, I've got the wish list and what you have submitted to the state. I'm sure there's some overlap there. In other words, did these items take any of the off of the wish list?
Some of them will, some of them won't.
A few might, though.
Yeah, And, you know, the,
If the print was larger, I probably could have looked at that. But, you know, I thought I'd just ask a question.
yeah, so some of those items are on there, the ADA compliant walkway. One of the items I did not mention is awnings here at 29th
Oh,
Street.
yeah, I remember that
as
one.
well
That
as-
was the last one.
Yeah, and so that is important for us to be able to have an awning out here outside the breezeway for kiddos during inclement weather or
For
when it's
drop-offs.
just really hot. Same for over at 22nd Street, because when they drop off over on Fulton, West one, we have no overhang, and so our staff is there in the elements. They can't really have an umbrella in their hand because typically they are opening car doors, helping kiddos get out of the car. And so this would be able to give them a little bit of relief from that. We're not gonna tell our 29th Street people they have to go stand out in Meridian Street to direct traffic, but they have nice heavy duty coats, so we're almost equitable there. But yeah, so by doing some of these bigger project things, that will be freeing up some of our future funding to be able to do more from the wish list. So, you know, it's always that creative maneuvering of funds and making sure we meet that.
So I wanna make sure that I'm understanding correctly. So we applied for the grant and we received money already, is that correct? Or we're waiting to hear about the grant?
Yes.
Okay, I
So,
just,
yeah, it's confusing because it's basically an entitlement grant. So they give us an
It's like the
allocation.
innovation grant.
Right.
Yeah, with there's parameters.
Apply for it, but
Right,
it's
and so with
coming
this,
to us.
they gave us a per pupil amount. They basically took the 25 million that was allocated in the biennium. They said there are this many charter school kids, here's your per pupil. And so they let us know really about this January 10th and then said January 31st, or say, here's your actual number 3 weeks ago, and it was due Friday. And so right now their timeline is that they are going to be reviewing that from yesterday through March 29th, as well as distributing funds in that time period. It was an interesting turnaround. I'm not gonna complain at all because I will take the money and happily spend it. The application was a little complex for me to fill out because we are one of the only, probably the only charter school that is one school with 3 campuses in that same city. Typically, for anybody else that was in that situation, each campus they have is another school. And so they had to fill it out individually for each of those. And for me, I was trying to merge it all together. They wanted to know square footage of admin space. I'm like, carry the one, look at 25 blueprints. We're close. So, Brian, at least I worked on a approval letter real quick so that we could submit. They do require a board resolution of support of the grant and project. And so that's basically where we're at now with that long-winded part of that. Obviously you have the resolution in front of you that says we're in agreement with this and that we are going to make sure that we spend the money exactly how we are supposed to, and then we will provide the financial oversight and reporting and everything that we are supposed to. So that is the resolution in front of you and the short, long story about the new charter facility grant.
So with that, with the 25th Street School, what's the time frame on getting the other stuff out of it? I know, like, isn't there still one group in there?
Yes, so Turnaway No Longer is still there, just as part of their extra storage facility. But that is essentially it. We put them on notice 18 months ago. All of the people that we had in there that, hey, this is coming. And so when we're ready to say, hey, I need you out, then they're working on that.
Mm-hmm.
So they were getting a whole barn built. I know if you've seen TANL on social media, they're working to build their house, but they actually, one of their first things that they've been working on is a storage area. So
I was seeing how much of the building that they've been storing stuff in as far as 25th Street School goes, they're gonna need one heck of a building.
Yeah, they might need to build a pole barn about as big as this building to get it,
Yes,
but,
'cause last time I was in there, which was in September for homecoming,
yes.
it was pretty full.
Yeah, they got a lot in there, and we have stuff as well that's part of looking at the basement, updates and whatnot, that's part of moving that green shed that we got for the jet fuel program and then grew before it actually got delivered, why we moved it to 22nd Street, because now there's more storage there. So, but yes, many hands will make the work light, right? It's all gonna work out, guys.
It will, for sure.
Yes.
All right, there's no,
Yeah, just need
Yeah.
to vote, prove that
Are
I've
there-
got a page for y'all to sign.
Are there any other discussions? All right, so I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting. No?
No,
No,
we
gotta
have
vote
to
the
get a.
resolution.
Oh,
You
I'm
got
so
yourself
sorry. I am so sorry. I am getting ahead.
That's been a long meeting.
It's been a long day, yes.
Down, yeah.
All right, well,
We
let's
get-
make a motion to approve. What am I approving? I'm so sorry.
The resolution for the charter facility.
Oh, there we go. Yes, the resolution for the charter grant. We have a motion?
Okay, I will make a motion that the board approves the resolution dated February 27, 2024 regarding APA's application for the 2024 Indiana Charter Facility Grant.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I just read off the title of the resolution, so we can use that as a reference.
All right. We're ready to catch up to my brain now?
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Now, we have,
Executive session.
Yes, we do have an executive session.
okay,
I'll make it quick, I promise.
do we want to take a few minutes break at the restroom or anything?
Yeah, you have to adjourn.
Adjourn.
I
Okay,
say you need to vote to adjourn, we're
Yeah.
not there yet.
Right, that's what I was gonna say, we have to vote to
Right.
adjourn.
We should.
Are you making a motion?
Do I have a
will make
motion?
I will make a gladly make
there
a
we go.
motion that we adjourn our regular meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any not in favor? All right, so our meeting is adjourned at 8:22 tonight. We do have executive